Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Chris Schul, the esoteric noetic, aka the Bitcoin MC, the disseminator of wisdomatic truth bombs. We're gonna watch a video right now that is just so fascinating. It showcases Craig Wright, who, by the way, in case you're not aware, is fake Toshi. He's a fake. He claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto, but everyone knows it's not true. No, Craig Wright is the creator of Bitcoin. Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. I know it offends a lot of people to hear that, but Craig Wright and Jimmy, they go to Oxford University and they speak to the students there in regards to the origins of Bitcoin. They explain the narrative from the perspective of Bitcoin SV. And in this little section here, this is like the highlight of the video, of the lecture at Oxford University, because it has one of the students grilling Craig Wright on his claim to Satoshi Nakamoto. They speak about how there's so much evidence to show that Craig Wright has apparently altered information. And this is what you hear on Twitter, that, look, Craig Wright can't be Satoshi Nakamoto because so-and-so said that he altered this, and so-and-so said that the addresses that he provided are fake, and they're fraudulent, and they've been proven to belong to someone else. And there's all of this evidence, and you realize that this stuff is hearsay. And this is the thing about Twitter. This is something that I've noticed. People just claim completely ridiculous things. They sometimes purposely alter information, or sometimes they just repeat things that are false. And when you actually do the research, and look, it's difficult. I mean, there's so much information in the 21st century that it's hard to know what to believe. But if you spend enough time, you cross who is telling you the truth and who is not. Not based off of your intuition, based off of what you feel, whether or not you like someone, but just based off of evidence, based off of actually going to the source. This is what good journalists are supposed to do. Go to the sources. And I mean, I've been in situations where people, for instance, have told me that Gavin Andresen claimed that Craig Wright was going to sign the Genesis block, but then he retracted that. And I'm like, no, Craig Wright actually signed the Genesis block in the presence of Gavin Andresen, and Gavin Andresen actually said this. And they're like, no. Gavin Andresen said that Craig Wright was going to, but he never did. And I will show people a video of Gavin Andresen saying that he actually had Craig Wright sign the Genesis block after he'd gotten a freshly purchased computer. And then they'll respond to me saying, no, well, this article says that he never said that. But I've showed them a video of Gavin Andresen actually saying that Craig Wright signed it, and they still want to dispute this stuff. I don't know if it's this disconnect where people only want to believe in evidence that supports their narrative, or people seem to not respect the hierarchy of evidence. If something is coming directly from someone, if someone is telling you an experience that they actually had, now granted, I understand that this can be subjective, but obviously that has more precedence than someone else telling you what that other person has said. And I guess this is a somewhat trivial example, but there's so many instances that I've come across where people just claim things that people have said when those people are saying actually from their mouth saying the exact opposite. And there's so much hearsay. And in this video, Craig Wright outlines this hearsay that is prevalent in the Twitter sphere. Also discusses how code is not lore, which is another very important point that I feel so many people in the crypto community seem to neglect. This idea that if you possess keys, then you own those keys. No, it's a form of evidence. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you have access to Bitcoins, then granted, those Bitcoins are in the moment, they're yours, but they don't necessarily belong to you. I find a lot of philosophically poor people making this argument that if you own something, then, if you have access to something, then it's yours. For instance, if I'm a thug and I come and steal your computer or steal your car, then that car is mine. No, I still claim that car because originally I had a legitimate claim to it. Just because you have something doesn't make it yours. This idea that simply because you have access to keys means that they're yours is ridiculous, at least within the realm of common law, because ultimately, you can steal someone's keys, you can steal someone's car. You still have to prove that you have a claim to what you possess. And this is what courts are for. I absolutely advocate for courts. And having said that, I'm absolutely someone that believes in the principles of libertarian individual rights. I don't believe that governments should have the right to circumvent your individual rights, but that doesn't mean I don't believe in the court of law. There are always going to be situations where you have disputes, and you need some kind of a system, whether it's independent courts, private courts, or a governmental court. And when I say government, I'm talking about a system, a voluntary government, but some system where people can discern whether or not what you were saying is true, whether or not you have a claim to a car or these private keys. Anyway, I don't want to go too deep into this, but let's check out this video and let's hear what Craig has to say in regards to some of the claims that are made against him and in relation to hearsay and code is law.
Hey, yeah, you talk about fake news, and I kind of agree to an extent, like especially a lot of crypto news is kind of nonsense. But Wired magazine in 2015, they supported your claim to be Satoshi. In fact, they're the ones who leaked it and already kind of pinned you as Satoshi. But a month later, so in 2015, there were blog posts that were leaked that predated the Bitcoin Light white paper, which apparently you had written, in which you spoke about the upcoming release of Bitcoin. So it seemed like the leak basically confirmed that you had created it. But then Wired, a month later, said that a lot of those references had been backdated. So they looked through the archives, and I've seen the screenshots. They looked through the archives on the Wayback Machine, and it shows that a lot of old versions of those blog posts.
What's the earliest date on those?
Sorry?
What is the earliest date?
The earliest date for what?
The archive.
The earliest date for the archive. I can't give you specifically what it is. But essentially, I'm basically saying Wired alleged, not me, Wired alleged that you had backdated a lot of those claims. And I'm asking, can you, because that to a lot of people kind of is a smoking gun.
So I've got referenced things that other people reference, meaning they exist, but they're going back to 2007. Yet you'll find nothing in the Wayback Machine before 2015. So the argument is there are multiple different versions of web pages that have existed. Yes, things have been turned off and whatever else. That doesn't mean they're backdated. That is because I didn't go out to Wired. Wired and Gizmodo were played by a Mr. Contrarian. Mr. Contrarian was sending documents that were stolen from my company, and contrary to what people, we didn't talk about our employees or whatever else. And as Jimmy knows, I mean, we had 45 staff in 2013. In the days when no one knew about Bitcoin, I had 45 staff in Australia working on Bitcoin projects, basically secretly under the radar. And I started talking to a number of people like Peter Todd and Greg Maxwell and Adam Back. And the next thing I know is I've got machines being hacked, I've got files being leaked, altered versions of records going in around the world, and people putting out documents saying they're from me. This is why court matters. If someone tells you, I've got an email from Craig Wright, and it didn't come from me, and they haven't proved how they've gotten it, they don't have an email from Craig Wright. If they've got an email they said came from me, they don't have an email from me. That's why you have rules of evidence. It's called hearsay.
Exactly. That's the point that I keep making. It's so easy to take what someone has said as being the truth. Someone says, hey, I got this email from Craig Wright that shows that he's a fraud. Well, it's more often than not. I mean, people share things that they've gotten from someone else, and that someone else share that from someone else, and at some point, it usually comes down to someone obfuscating the information. And because enough people have decided to share this, everyone has eventually accepted this as truth. I mean, even this presentation, apparently there was some guy that shared this rumor that Craig Wright walked away from the accusations and didn't want to address them. Like he somehow flurried off because he's a fraud and didn't have any answers. But the reality is Craig Wright sat here and addressed all of these questions calmly, intelligently, and of course people will still create this narrative, and enough people will start sharing this, as the truth. And this is what Twitter's about. You say things that are completely ridiculous, like Donald Trump sucked some guy's penis. And people jump on that. They start sharing, and before you know it, none of this stuff has been checked for factuality, but you have tons of people sharing this information. So it's hearsay.
If someone hands you a document, a PDF, a printout of an email and says, this came from Craig Wright, why do you believe that? Yet that's what people are doing right now. So this evidence is things that don't even get an initial look in court.
But there's a history of fabricated evidence created and is leaked to journalists or online that is difficult to sift through. And it can be viewed
on the Wayback Machine that a lot of the kind of references to stuff like cryptocurrency paper and triple entry accounting were added in 2013. You can see that on the Wayback Machine.
No, you can't, because you don't see the original page. Show me the Wayback Machine 2008 entry.
I mean, do you want
to be valid, the 2008 entry of the page would have to be shown. It's not valid evidence. The original page has been deleted. It doesn't exist on the Wayback Machine.
Okay.
So I can tell you, as a former lawyer who litigated many cases in the U.S., that courts of law don't accept Wayback Machine printouts as reliable.
I just have to make a comment here. No homo, but Jimmy is absolutely awesome. Like, every time I've watched this guy, is incredibly diplomatic, incredibly articulate, understands the technical aspect of Bitcoin flawlessly, and is just the perfect lawyer. I mean, seriously, this is one of the reasons why I'm inclined to think that, Craig Wright's team, I mean, look, regardless of how you feel about Craig Wright, I think he's a freaking genius. I don't obviously agree with everything he says in regards to politics and democracy and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's a brilliant guy, obviously very controversial. Jimmy is like the yin to Craig Wright's yang. I mean, Jimmy is incredibly personable, incredibly diplomatic, really good with people. So goddamn articulate, doesn't stutter ever. And I mean, this guy's a genius lawyer. And yeah, I just love the way that he addresses so many of the questions and the attacks that have been made towards Craig Wright.
Evidence of what a website may or may not have looked like in the past, because they're not entirely reliable.
It's just that the date on the actual blog post says 2009. It says 2009.
No, what you'll find is the Wayback Machine.
In January 2009. And then 2013 it says there was stuff and backdated.
You can choose to believe anything you see on a web page as true or not. I can choose to believe what I see on the archive. Which may or may not be true.
The archive from 2014
I don't know.
Does have the 2008 page. There's no way back going beyond that.
2009 page, 2009 January.
Isn't saved.
It isn't saved?
No.
That was the one that was leaked in the Wired article?
Yes, there's altered pages from later.
So it's altered?
Okay, let's move on.
By who? By Wired?
Sorry, I'm going to court on this.
This point is absolutely brilliant, because it shows just the gravity of this entire debate. I mean, it reaches a point, no doubt, where you have to choose who you're going to believe. And most of us don't have the time to go back and do the research to find the original document. Ugh. But when you go to court, anyway, I'll just let Craig Wright get into this. Like, it just shows the gravity of the situation, how, yeah, the truth tends to come about when you go to court.
That's simple. I don't need to face trolls in rooms. That's why we have evidence. So here's the thing. Evidence. We have courts. You know what happens when you lie in a court? You know the maximum penalty in this country for perjury? It's about 20 years. Great. I'm going to be in court. Prove it in court. You get to send me to jail for 20 years. I get to put my evidence, and other people get to put theirs.
And this is the thing that really makes me think people must be ridiculous. I mean, I know a lot of people like me, Peter McCormack, who's going to court with Craig Wright in regards to Craig Wright being Satoshi Nakamoto. was saying that there's no way that Craig Wright would go to court, that he's bluffing because he knows he's a fraud. But here's the thing. He's not bluffing. He's willing to go to court. I mean, the fact that, who in their right mind, if they think that, if they know that they're not who they claim to be, is going to go to a court and risk facing 20 years for perjury? No one forcibly does that kind of stuff. I mean, it's different if you're kind of pulled into a situation and you don't want to be there. But it seems to me to be completely ridiculous that people believe someone is going to go to court and lie about them having created Bitcoin when if they hadn't, there'd be so much contradictory evidence to definitively prove that they hadn't, or at least make a strong argument that they hadn't, that they would not want to risk it. Unless, of course, you're insane. You're only going to do that if you were absolutely certain that, one, it cannot be proven that you did not create this thing, or you fucking know that you created this thing. And this is the situation that we have. People, for some reason, think that Craig Wright is so stupid that he's willing to go to court and risk facing 20 years in jail just to save face. When the reality is, he knows he created this thing, and more importantly, he knows that he can prove he created this thing. That's why he's going to court.
How real things work in the real world, outside of this crypto shit sort of Twitter storm world where people sit there going, oh, Twitter matters. The real world, people have evidence and rules. People put documents out and get a chance to actually have them analysed properly. People in the real world, outside Twitter, Facebook, and fake news, get to actually say, I'm sorry, I didn't create that. Just because someone wrote my name on a PDF didn't mean it came from me. I don't know about you, but I find that as important. I find this whole world of 1,000 years of common law important. I don't think code...
That is something that I absolutely agree with. And this next bit here is so important. And look, I will admit, there's a point where I didn't really think about this whole concept of code is law, because in the crypto community, everyone has this idea that, look, all we need is code, and if something can be verified through code, for instance, we know that someone has the keys to something, there you go. Well, granted, that's a form of evidence, but it's not definitive. There are actually much better forms of proving whether or not someone is, let's say, Satoshi Nakamoto, or proving things beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, just possession does not prove that you own something. This is the point that I keep on coming home to. I mean, if you can show, for instance, you can corroborate your story with multiple people, and a lot of people claim that, oh, you can't, it's a conspiracy, these people are in on the conspiracy. Well, I give that far more credibility, than someone simply having keys. I mean, because when you're in a court facing perjury, most people aren't willing to make up bullshit, because they know that bullshit could end them in jail.
Code as law is good. I think it is shit.
I agree.
I think code as law is the lowest attack on modern society, the biggest social justice warrior attack, trying to rip down everything we have good. It's really about taking away everything we've built over hundreds of years and going, oh, it's just white males. Well, it's not. I'm sorry, Western culture isn't white males. Augustus of Hippo was African. Sophia of Lesbos was female. And people understand that her poems about women were by a woman. That's Western culture. It isn't just a whole lot of guys in what like for the last 50 years bloody Harvard's been teaching us. It's a whole lot of different coloured people of different religions, different races, different everything else. And I'm not throwing Western culture away. I'm not throwing law away. I will do it in court, where I will be held liable for my actions. Thank you.
Sensible point.
That answers my question.
Metaphysical, lyrical, saying nothing truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loot. You can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You